Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Zone TV. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And for those who may be new to the show, if you would please subscribe, I'd appreciate it. And also, please guys, don't forget to give the show a like. Well, tonight I have an awesome guest. He's been on the show before and he is welcome back again. And he has another new book coming out. Let me put this up here. My guest is E.Fults, and he has actually, this book he's turned into a trilogy. Now tonight I just have pictures of Mark. He doesn't have Skype, so we just show a picture of him. Mark, thanks for joining us on the show, and would you please tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yes, and thank you for having me, Norene. Of course, my name is E.Fults. I'm a psychic I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and now I live in Milton, Florida. I have been working in the psychic field for, over 40 years now. I'm getting to be an old thing. I've been doing books. I'm friends with Jill Gray, and we started a little publishing thing called E.Fults Publishing, and so I help her with some books. She helps me with books, and so I've been turning out books like crazy. I have Chattanooga Chills. I have Corpse with Catchfly. With Teal, I worked on several anthologies, which is Shades of Angels, Scared Senseless. We've got several books coming out with her. And then I've got, of course, this book, which is The Darkest Corner, which is one of the sickest things I've ever dealt with in my life. And thanks to you, you suggested I do this in a trilogy.
Absolutely.
And so, because it's all about necrophilia and stuff like that. Murderers with necrophilia, dolls, people who treat corpses as dolls, and funeral homes, and criminal stuff that happens with funeral homes or just weird stuff, crematories. And so this is the one we're talking tonight is the dolls version, which is corpses treated as dolls, and also dolls across the world that are being, that are being treated as people, people putting spirits in them. People being obsessed with sex dolls that, the countries are worried are going to turn into necrophiliacs because it's kind of happening that way. So I'm just here to talk a lot of sick stuff.
But we're just touching on not even just a little bit of some of this stuff. Yeah. Your book is filled with it. So this first book is on corpses and dolls. Then what's the second book on? You're coming for the second book. What's that one on?
The second book will be murderers who involved in necrophilia, like Dahmer and cannibalism. Bundy, I didn't know that Bundy, after he killed girls, he would restyle their hair, put makeup on them, dress them weird, do their fingernails, and then have sex with them until they fall apart. So the second book is going to be about murders, cannibalism, and necrophilia.
Okay.
And then the third one will be funeral homes and crematories and the perverted stuff that happens there.
Which I didn't know about. And that one we're going to do, we're going to air a show on that in October for our month of October. Okay, Mark. So let's get started with the first one.
Okay. Well, the first one. Why don't we tackle Anatoly?
Right. Go ahead.
Okay. And this is the story that really kicked this project into gear. Anatoly Moskvin. Excuse me, I can barely speak English, let alone anything else. He was in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. They call him the Russian Doll Man. Now, you have to understand, this man is a genius. He knows 13 languages, speaks 13 languages. He has a collection of over 60,000 books and documents and stuff like this. And he's an expert in his country on cemeteries, burials, customs, and he, as a teacher, would speak about, he was really obsessed with Celtic traditions and Celtic techniques and mysticism and occultism. And in 2011, they arrested him because he had the bodies of 26 little girls that he had dug up and turned into dolls. And they ranged from the age of 3 up to 15. Now, he lived in a house with his mother and father. And if you see pictures of it, when you look it up, look up the Russian doll man, it's totally trashed. I mean, he totally lived in like a burrow. And his parents would leave. They were gone most of the year, vacationing somewhere. And when they were gone, he would go do his work, which in 2005, he was hired to do research on 700 cemeteries. So he would walk to all of these cemeteries. He would sleep in the cemeteries, sleep in barns, drink water out of puddles. He was kind of a freak. And but he investigated, wrote down all the information of 752 cemeteries. And during that process, when he would sleep in the cemeteries, he had wanted in real life to have a daughter. And he wasn't allowed to because he's a freak, and he's single. And he had an obsession with cemeteries when he was young. He said that the thing that kind of kicked it in for him was he had a little friend that died when she was 11, and they made him kiss her forehead. They forced him to reach into the casket, kiss her. And he became obsessed with little dead girls. But he had been raped when he was little. He did not want to have sex with corpses. He just wanted a little girl as a child. So when he was refused to have one, he started going to these cemeteries and was investigating them. And he knew about who all the children were. And he would find different graves and sleep on them, lay on them, and do a Celtic tradition of talking to the spirit. And when he would talk to them, eventually he would hear the voice talk back to him. And eventually, apparently, it got too hard on him in the cold weather to lay on the graves. So he decided he could hear them better if he dug them up and brought them home. So when his parents weren't at home for months, he would go out, he would lay on the grave, find a child that he would focus on, and if she said to him in his mind, I want to go for a walk, he would dig them up, cut a hole in the casket, pull them out of the casket, hide them in the cemetery in a place where they wouldn't be seen, let them dry out. He would rub them with salt and baking soda and things like that. And then he would take them home, he would wrap them in, what do you want to call it, cheesecloth, things like that. And he wrapped them in layers and layers of that, and he would empty their cavities and stuff them with rags and stuff, and put little wind-up music boxes in their ribs, so he said that they could sing to him. And he would cover them with layers and layers and layers of hose, until their features were obliterated, And then he would paint faces on them, or sometimes keep them blank. And he felt like through black magic or science, he would be able to bring these little girls back to life. And they said they thought he had probably tried to get about 150 girls' graves, got to them, but a lot of them didn't meet whatever standard he wanted, or weren't vibrating enough, or weren't speaking enough. And so he ended up with the 26, and he would still take the glows out of the graves. He would, and took them home, knew all of their names, knew all of their birthdays, had birthday parties for them. They'd watch TV, and so his house was full of them. So when his parents would come back, they just thought he was collecting dolls or making dolls. They didn't realize these were bodies. And he got away with it for a very, very, very long time. And during this period, what turned out to be one of the most famous of the girls that he grabbed was a little girl named Olga Chadamova, who she was born in 1992, and she lived with her parents, and she was just 10 years old.
Is that little blonde girl? Is that the little blonde girl?
Yeah, the one that they really talk about the most. Okay. The one who, Olga, she had lived with her parents, and she wanted to go to her grandma's and be able to go on her own. So the very first time they let her go out of that door on her own, she got into the lobby, and a drug dealer who lived in the building grabbed her, took her to his room, was going to steal her earrings, and she tried to get away, and he killed her with a metal bar. Hid her body up in the attic, in between the walls, and they didn't know where she was for 6 months. And so she was murdered. The parents had to go through this horror. So they buried Olga. And within the years, they started getting notes on the grave from this unknown person that when it was time for her birthday or for celebrations or whatever, there would be these notes to her congratulating her on her graduating 5th grade or whatever. And he started leaving notes to them, threatening them. And one note was like, if you don't put a good marker here or a good monument to her, I will dig her up and take her home. So they put a tombstone there. They didn't know that he had already taken her. And they put his tombstone there, and he came back and busted it up with a hatchet. And so he was torturing them. They didn't know why he was doing this, who it was. And for about 9 years, he tortured them and the other parents because he felt that they had abandoned their children, that they had put them in the ground and they were cold and lonely. And he was coming and digging them up and taking them home to keep them warm and keep them entertained. So when the story broke about, because the police were coming to him because he was a cemetery expert, and they were coming to him about all of these disturbances and dug up graves and stuff like that. And then they started realizing something was wrong. And his parents apparently reported him because they started smelling one of the corpses, I think. And they realized they weren't quite dolls. And so the police came and got him on something else, and then while they were there, he told them that, they were looking at the dolls, and he goes, they're corpses. And if you see the pictures, it's just unbelievable. He had them laying by his bed. They were laying on the tables. Since he was like a hoarder, there was just piles of clothes and trash and these dolls stuffed up in all sorts of different places. And some of them, the younger ones the smaller ones look like dolls. The bigger ones you can tell look like corpses. And it's just unbelievable that someone didn't catch on, And when they arrested him, he went to a mental facility, and is still there. But he was mad in court. He was saying, he was mad at the parents. The parents had abandoned these girls, and he was giving them a good home. Mm. And he didn't have sex with them. They said he was a virgin. He had been raped as a child. He had no desire for sex. He just wanted to have children. And but he was very cruel to the families and very strange. And, you know, he would just, and a lot of people, when they were trying to identify their children, they could identify them from the clothes they were buried in, or, you know, or he took other children's clothing that he dug up and gave them to the other, you know, to the dolls he made. So it just, the story grabbed me because I felt so, I'm very protective of children. And the first thing you want to do is you want to protect these children. Mm-hmm. And then you have to realize, well, they're dead. They're already beyond protecting. You know, they've already been, they weren't murdered by him, but for all of his time he had done that. And he was magically doing ritual and stuff like that, trying to bring them back to life. And he figured that he covered their faces and stuff and made new faces because he thought if he was able to bring them to life, they wouldn't want to come back into these ugly bodies.
So these young girls that he robbed, what happened to them when they found him in his living space? Were they able to find the owners of these bodies, or what did they do with the bodies?
Since he kept so many records, he knew who each doll was. He knew who each girl body was.
Wow.
So they were able to get them back to their families.
Wow.
And then they were reburied. And when they buried Olga, they hid her so that if he ever got out, you know, he'll never find her. But they were all returned to their families. And it just it was mind-boggling.
My God.
And all of the people that worked with him said he was very eccentric, but brilliant, you know. I mean, brilliant, you know. And, I mean, here's a man who can speak 13 languages, he's known as one of the biggest historians on their cemeteries and burials and rituals, and he's a little dirty freak.
Oh my God.
And I mean, he's a dirty little freak. If you look at his apartment, you know, it's gross. And what's gross is that his parents lived in the building with him. I don't know if they lived in that mess particularly, but they didn't see anything wrong with him having these big ass dolls. You know, they just thought he was making dolls. And when you really start to look at some of them are pretty damn scary.
Oh yeah, he covers them. There's no image at all.
No, and there was one or two that did, but they were so haunting. They were so scary, but most of them were blank.
But you know what? There is a picture of two of them with faces, and one has I don't know if you remember the picture, the one with the green hair with eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the girl that's next to it has like an angel-like face.
Yeah. And there's the one that I think, anytime I've looked up Olga's, the mother said she never wanted to see any of those pictures. You know, she had seen some of the pictures of the other girls. But the one that, if you pull up Olga, they'll always show this one that's dressed in red.
Oh, yeah. And
that one has a complete face.
Oh, yeah. And he liked, I read that he liked using nail polish and makeup and stuff on these dolls. On some of them, anyway.
It's beyond strange, but but like I said, the first thing that grabbed me was I felt for these children and wanted to protect the children. Well, the children are beyond they're beyond all that. But I can't imagine what the families had to go through. And for Olga's family, she'd been murdered. She'd been taken from them. Mm-hmm. When they found her, she was beyond being shown, so they didn't have they couldn't really do a goodbye to her. And then they buried her. They had her 10 years. He had her 9 years.
Oh, my God. How long is this man in jail for?
They put him in jail, and then they put him, I think, in like a mental facility. So that was in 2011.
Okay.
So So he's been in there 7 years. And hopefully they will keep him in there, you know, but you never know what's here. The thing is if you're a murderer or anything like that and you go to a mental facility, so they can only keep you usually for a limited time. And then a lot of them they release, you know, back into the streets.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Carl. Guys, we only have an hour.
Sure,
and Mark, you know, he's so full of information. So we want to get out the most important of these topics that we're going to talk about, that Mark is going to talk about tonight. Absolutely wonderful story. That, if you can tell, that's what Mark does. He's a story. Okay, let's go.
You wouldn't have told any of this sick shit, though. Oh, excuse me.
All right, let's go. Oh my God, talk about bizarre.
Yeah.
We're going to do Dr. Carl Tanzler von Kossel.
Yes, and Carl Tanzler was born in Germany, and in the 1880s, I think, 1888. And
1877.
when he grew up, he went to Australia right before the First World War and was doing stuff there. I mean, he was very intelligent. These are very intelligent people. And they're so intelligent that they are separate from other people. They can't relate to the regular individuals, you know. So they're very loners and they do weird shit. Excuse my language. I mean, stuff. But Carl Tanzler, when he was in Australia, the war broke out, the First World War. The British put him in a concentration camp, and that's probably where his problems really started. And after the war, he was released, but they wouldn't allow, since he was German, they wouldn't allow him back into Australia. They sent him to Holland. Then he went back to Germany. And in 1926, he moved to where his sister lived, which was in Key West. So he came to Key West, and he became a, what do you want to call it?
Radiologist.
A radioactive?
Radiologist.
Radiologist. And in 1930, now if you look at pictures of this dude, he was fairly old looking, so he probably, you know, he's kind of like a Colonel Sanders old looking.
Yeah.
And when he was a child, he had the ghost or the spirit of a relative, an ancestor, I think it was Contessa Anna Kosel, who appeared to him and would tell him and show him visions that he was, the love of his life was going to be this beautiful, dark-haired, just gorgeous girl. And so, now, it didn't help that he was married and had children, and he lived in Key West. And he was working in this, the Marine Hospital, the local hospital there. And in 1930, a girl came in named Elena Hoyos. And she was a local beauty, just drop-dead beautiful. You know, they all thought she was gorgeous. And she had TB, which it would be real hard for people now to understand. But TB was a plague. It was called the White Death in a lot of places. And if you got TB, the chances were you would just die. They had hospitals everywhere. They had sanatoriums where you would go and they would do horrible things to try and cure you. And a lot of people just died from the treatments, let alone anything else. And to show you how close it is, I mean, you know, in my families, my mother's father's sister died of TB in 1917. On my father's side, my grandmother and a great aunt had TB, but they recovered because they got it like in the 30s and 40s. But here the treatments were apparently a little better, and they recovered. But every family had people basically who were dying or had TB. And he fell in love with this girl on sight. He thought it was the one his spirit had told him that was his love. And he started fawning on her, bringing her gifts. And he was a technician, but he really wasn't like a doctor. But he started acting like he was a doctor. And he started trying to heal her with his ideas or his inventions. And he would bring all this stuff to her house and treat her and really was trying to save her.
Now, what about that airplane he built? Isn't that where he was doing his experiments on her?
There was some kind of weird, now that you ask me, my brain went, but there was an airplane he was building to fly, to do something. I forgot what the explanation was. It was real, it's just another layer of weirdness. And, but he basically lived in the remnants of a plane that he was building or had put together from parts. He was nuts, he was brilliant, but he was nuts. And when she died in 1931.
Well, he tried to cure her. He tried to cure her, and it didn't work.
Tried to save her.
Yeah.
And he was throwing all this love on her, but she didn't reciprocate. She let him fawn on her, but she didn't reciprocate it. And when she died, he was broken, he was very upset. The parents let him, he built a mausoleum to put her in and paid for the funeral and all that. And the parents thought he was just, in love with her. And the mother gave him a big swatch of hair that she had cut from Elena's head. And they didn't apparently, he had it's a little mausoleum if you've ever seen the pictures of it, but it had a door that locked with the key. He had the key to get into it. Well, the reason he built the mausoleum is so he could do a self-service thing. And he would go in there and sing and talk to Elena. And she had died in 31, and he waited 2 years. And then finally the spirits, he would go in there and he thought the spirit was coming to him and telling him she wanted him to take her home. So one night, he got his little Red Ryder wagon. Now, when I was a kid, everybody had a little Red Ryder wagon, or a radio flyer wagon,
Yeah.
And he took this little red wagon to the mausoleum in the middle of the night, put her body in it, took it home, and took coat hangers, and any of the bones that were falling apart, he wired the bones together. There was apparently still enough of her decomposing that he wrapped her in silk, dipped in wax and paraffin and plaster, and he basically turned her into a big silk, plaster, and wax doll. And he put in glass eyes, and he took the hair the mother had given him and the hair that had fallen off in the grave, because when you're dead, after a certain point, the hair lets loose. So he made her a wig, and he fixed her up and kept her home. And for 7 years, he played house with Elena. And apparently he had been telling people or something, because one of her sisters caught wind of it. And I really like her character, because she came to the door. She demanded to see if he had her sister. And he acted like she was there for a visit to eat, to have afternoon tea. And he took her back to the bedrooms. There's her sister laying there like a big doll. And lots of incense, because it was stinking. And he goes, "You can come and visit us anytime you want." So the sister flipped, and she went and got the police there. He was arrested, but it was kind of like he was in trouble for fooling with a corpse, or mishandling of a corpse. But it's by the laws, I think it was already passed. He really couldn't be tried on it.
Oh yeah, that's right. The time had expired.
Yeah, and so they decided, they took the body, they did an autopsy, and there are pictures of it. You can see it. They peeled back the stuff to show her teeth and show her ribs, and
yeah, I'm showing.
And then they fixed her back up, put her in the funeral home, put her on display, and about 7,000 people came to see the body. Children were let out of school to come see the body on school trips. And they kind of made it into a big love story, a romantic love story, and, it was treated that way. The family weren't so impressed.
Okay, but wait a minute. You left something out. You left something out. When they did the autopsy on the body,
oh, yeah,
it revealed...
The paper tube.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people go, well, but...
Well, tell the viewers. Wait a minute, tell the viewers. You and I know what it is, so tell the viewers.
Oh, okay. Well, they didn't report it at the time. And two, you got to remember the 40s were, in 1940 when this came out, you didn't say things like, well, he was having sex with a corpse. But they said, well, autopsy 30 years later, in the 70s, which we could say anything in the 70s, said that there had been a tube, like a cardboard tube, like you had, is no big step, and that would be why she was still rotting, and there was a lot of smell. Well, if she was encased in plaster, that would be pretty well enclosed in that. But if you have a tube that is allowing fumes out, then that's why he was using perfume and incense like crazy. Mm-hmm. And after they took her away and the family reburied her secretly, he remade a copy of her because he had a face mask. And he died in 1952. They found him after he had been dead for 3 weeks. And some of the stories said he was found in the arms of the second plaster model he made. And in some people, the other reports was he had fallen behind his organ, his musical organ, and had died. So a lot of people see him as a folk hero, and there are songs and videos, and so it's kind of crazy. But it's a good place for a stick up,
All right, so let's go on to the next one.
Ooh, which one?
The bride. Go ahead. Pascolati?
La Pascalita, I think.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It is how to pronounce. Like I said, I can barely speak English, let alone some of these foreign words. But there is a dress shop now, my cousin had chihuahuas, and we would always call them chihuahuas. So I think the way this is pronounced is Chihuahua, Mexico, but it could be Chihuahua.
It's Chihuahua.
But in 1929, there was this dress shop owner. Her daughter died on her wedding day from a black widow bite. And a year later, in 1930, there's this mannequin that she started putting in the window, and people started going, well, that looks like her daughter. And when you see the pictures of this mannequin,
I'm showing them.
It is pretty damn freaky. Because the thing to me that's amazing is the hand. And the hands look real. They don't. She doesn't have a mannequin's hand. She has a real person's hand. So the idea has been that she was preserved and it's a real corpse in the window. And for years, she's been there over 80 years, going on 90 years. And people go to see this mannequin. And it's still a dress store, and she's still in the window. And they have they have a worker who changes it twice a week. And it freaks her out to change it because she says the hands look so real, and there are varicose veins on the legs. And so she says it's just freaky to her. But we have to be kind of real. We don't have any procedures right now where we could preserve a corpse so well that it could stand in a window in the heat and the light for 80 years.
Right.
We couldn't do that for 1 week because a lot of people do not understand decomposition. And, you know, we do all this funeral stuff where, you know, they fix them up and they act like you're going to put them in this box and it's going to stay beautiful forever. And that's not the case. It just doesn't happen. There's a few cases where people, I think at the most, maybe 100 years, I've seen one corpse that lasted about almost 100, preserved beautifully, but it was in glass and it wasn't exposed to light like this. But I don't think it's a corpse. A lot of people do think it's a corpse. I do think maybe it's because of the uniqueness of the hands, and if it looked like the daughter, it could be a post-mortem copy. Because in the old days, they did have post-mortem copies they would make of children and babies. They would make a casting of them, make a doll out of them, sort of like a mannequin. And you could have the doll. They would cut the hair off and the eyebrows and paste them on and do them in wax and stuff, and they would look like an effigy of the child.
Now, the thing is,
a casting.
Her dress is changed. There are some staff members that change.
Yeah.
Her now, and I couldn't read anything about what she looks like when they change her clothing, but there's also supernatural happenings that happen in that dress shop.
No kidding. Yeah, they say things move, and they think she comes to life.
Yeah.
And actually, I really do think she is probably a casting off of the woman's daughter or someone, because the hands, if you look at the hands, they are not mannequin hands. They are cast off of human hands, off of a person's real self. And so, and those kind of things, those kind of effigies that are made of post-mortem effigies, they do tend to have the spirit or the essence of the person attached to them, because then the families put all their attention on the doll, on the effigy.
Yeah. Well,
so it's very, very possible that it's a haunted spirit. That's a haunted doll. That's a haunted mannequin. And the people who do change her dresses, they say they sweat every time they do it.
Especially at night.
Weird. It's weird.
And they said that she follows you. You could feel her gazing at you, and she follows them in the store.
Yeah, I believe that. If you've ever seen portraits, there are portraits that the eyes will follow you because of a technique that was used to paint them.
Right.
And I have no doubt that mannequin is infused with a spirit of some sort. And after all 80 years of people focusing on her, even if she hadn't had any energy to begin with, she did after all these people have focused on her. Because you set your PSI energy into the figure, and it will take on a consciousness. It will take on an energy. So it's very possible to me that she's got something going on there.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to go check it out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think thousands and thousands of people go all the time looking at her. But there's also a folklore about a lovesick French magician.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them?
About a magician who comes in and brings her to life.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is, I mean, whoever has that business, they really have free advertising with this. But I don't know that I would want to buy a wedding dress that's been on La Pascalita. But people, she's a big draw.
Yeah.
But again, she's a doll. It's one of these very strange doll stories. And but she's very pretty.
She's beautiful. She's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay, so
go
ahead. So let's move on to the next one. Talking about dolls again. Now, how do you? Okay, I'm going to just show it. Luke Fepp. Luke
Luke
Thep?
Thep?
Yeah.
I think it's Luke Thep. And in Thailand, they're having a lot of doll stuff happen in Thailand. But these Luke Thep dolls are, let me see, they're kind of like considered good luck, but they're created, the original ones or the earlier ones, they would purposely try to take the corpses of unborn babies or the essence of unborn babies and put the essence, they go to a priestess, there's a special priestess who would put the soul of the baby who didn't make it into these dolls. And they become like living children. And so when you have one, to bring good luck into your life, you treat it like a child. You feed it, you change clothes. There are now monks that bless these dolls. They're so popular that now there is a monk who does a spiritualization ceremony. And he puts spirit energy into 5 or 6 at a time for people. And he'll mark on them with something they can't read, some kind of sigil or something, to represent that they have a spirit in them. And people, they're being sold by the thousands, and they're very expensive. But they're so real to these people that I think it's called Thai Smile Airlines.
Yes.
Will sell seats, very expensive seats, that you can buy a seat to put your Luke Thep doll in, like it's a child, and it flies in the airplane with you. They're just treated like, the more you treat them like humans and feed them, the better your luck is.
And
so
the
celebrities
reason
have them because they feel like that helped them become celebrities.
Well, the reason they do that is they feel that because these dolls have undergone a spiritualization process that breathes life into them.
Yes. Which in magic, which of course, I mean, I'm a third-degree Gardnerian, you can put energy into inanimate objects and give it consciousness. Because if you put your PSI energy in it, or your energy, a little bit of your consciousness, energy, whatever that is, that little fluid, it can give consciousness to dolls and to things that are and dolls represent humans. They have for centuries and centuries and centuries. They at first were not meant for toys. They were meant to be representations of people for magic. And so when you have a monk putting energy to bring a doll to life in a rough energy magical sense, they're kind of doing it.
Well, also it said that the owners purchase jewelry and clothing for their dolls in exchange for their blessings.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the better the doll treats them, the more money they make, except the better the doll gets treated. So they take these dolls out for dinner, entertainment, whatever. They're treating them like real people, like real children. And the more that they treat them, the better they get blessed. So the more they're blessed, the more they treat the doll and better, and vice versa. And so it's in Thailand. Now, Thailand is also the one where they're having the problem of sex dolls. Now, we saw because I know you looked at the pictures of sex dolls. The sex dolls look like real people. They make them in male and female. And they're thousands of dollars. But people are getting into all of these doll things, and the sex dolls, the Thailand is trying to put a cap on it because they feel like that it will lead to necrophilia, which I can see that because there are cases of that. Like the guy I was telling you from Miami last year who his mother smelled something in his room and reported the police, and it turned out he had his girlfriend's dead, rotting corpse in his bedroom. He had disemboweled her.
Oh, my.
And had her under a sheet and was saying, no, it's not a person, it's a sex doll made out of flesh. And it was his dead girlfriend.
Oh, my God.
So the Thailand may have the right thing. They're saying people getting into these sex dolls and dolls, it's blurring the line between what's real and what isn't. And it could lead to necrophilia, because a lot of people who are into sex dolls, they are in countries sometimes that do not have very many women or very many men to spare, and they want to end up having human relationships, and the doll is close, but it's not quite close. But a corpse can never, can't turn you down, can't say no, won't judge you. So the more that they're treating dolls as living things, it's crossing a line, so a lot of people don't know the difference.
Wow. Okay, so let's go on to our last topic. Let me find the thing. Okay, here we go, guys. Ghost marriages.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you what. They think that this in China, it's in several countries, but this is China, that it goes back to like 17 BC. And there are people who do this. If you have a son or a daughter that dies, and they're not married, now sometimes nowadays we can say, well, some of them are, they're bachelors, bachelorettes, or they could have been gay or anything. You never know. And it's a shame in their country. You can't. It's just a terrible thing if your child dies and they are not married. And there was one case I was looking at where just a couple of years ago, this boy died, and he was a bachelor, which they call that. The men are called bare branches, and girls, if they are not married, are called leftover women or autumn leaves. That they are the dead leaves. They feel like in their culture, the men have to, they have more men because they have a gender bias. They kill little girls. You only have one child in some places that you're allowed to have. And if it's not a male, you can't have an abortion, or you can kill the baby, let it die of exposure or whatever. And the male is important, and so, they feel like the male will take care of the family. So if the guy dies and he's not married, they feel like it's a blot on the family. And they also are very afraid of ghosts. And they are afraid the ghosts will come back and haunt you and cause damage and whatever. So they have a fix for this, which is if the guy dies, they will broker to hire someone else's daughter who dies. They will pay for that, like, big bucks, to hire that daughter's ghost to marry their son. And so then he's married, so then that will take care of the situation. And they also do that for women. If women are not married, then they hire a dead guy. And they said that there's like 26 million men and very few women. So there's, not a whole lot to cover the ground. So the brokers have gotten to where there are brokers who are killing women, then falsifying their death certificates and selling them to families to marry the sons. And once they're married, then they're buried with them and all this stuff. But people, if they find out that there's a girl dying, an unmarried woman dying in a hospital, dozens of people will run to that hospital and auction for the use of the girl. The families will sell the girl while she is still alive, before she's dead. Mm-hmm. They will auction her off. But then to them, so when you're having a funeral, you're also having a wedding.
But wait a minute. There's also those, like you said, they're waiting for the girl to die, but they also sell children that are, people that are disabled Just
oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They'll pick on people. They'll rotate people who are disenfranchised or disabled,
and then they kill them. They kill them.
They kill them. They kill them, and they'll kill them and sell them. And when you're talking anywhere from $8,000 to $31,000 in American money to get a corpse, because one of the matchmakers, the broker, said you can't. 30 years ago, you could get a corpse for about $1,500. Now you can't get a bone for under $31,000. So it's big business. Mm-hmm. And there are businesses on the street, the broker this. And if they can't get someone to kill or die, they'll go and dig up corpses, clean them up, sell them, resell them, fake the death certificate, or they will go find a rotten... Poor people have to deal with what they can do, so they'll go dig up a rotten corpse and dig it up and do the ceremony. And, so your son gets married to some corpse he didn't know, So it's all beautiful.
But now in Asia, though, for ghost marriages, though, when they're both deceased, they use symbols of a man and a woman.
Yes.
I'm showing that right now.
Yes. And what you brought up to me before we said that they can also, if one of the couples is dead but the other one's alive, they can have the marriage, and then you tell the other part that that they had to wait 30 years or have the symbol for 30 years.
Yeah.
Picture for 30 years.
I'm showing a picture. This is from actually there are other countries that do this. France, Sudan.
Wow.
Even they said in the United States, there was a religion that does this, Church of the Latter-day Saints. Go figure.
Wow.
Yes. But there are some other countries that also do this. I think there's Africa and all the other countries. But what happens is when in the Asian culture, when somebody is marrying a dead person, the picture has to be displayed for 30 years. Yes. And then after 30 years, it's okay. You can get rid of it because they figure after 30 years the spirit has moved on.
Well, in the Mormon belief, they have a thing of where when you die, if you're a woman, your husband has to speak for you in the afterlife. And I could see where that is an offshoot of that, where, you have to have someone dead to help you into the other world, or to be married, or so we have it. It's in America in little different forms.
Yeah, and then with the Asians, they believe that this helps them live a normal life because they were died young. That they didn't have a normal life here on Earth, so they can get married on the other side, have children, have a family, and live happily ever after.
Yeah.
But also, the date is very, very important, because if the date isn't picked out properly, it can cause bad luck.
Yes. There's a lot of rules and regulations.
Yep. Yep.
And if, like the one I saw, they wouldn't allow the boy died, they wouldn't allow the family to bury him until he could get married. So they had to hold on to that corpse for a year. And after a year, they found the girl, took a year, and then they could bury them. But until then, in your back room, or, you're using a coffee table, you look just like your uncle. See? There's a napkin in there, you look.
Okay, just a second. Chipetary, somebody says there's no Mormons don't do that, and Beat 3 Airspace says that Latter-day Saints do not do this. The only reason I said that is because I found a website that was done by the Post. I think the website was from a newspaper article, and they had named the other countries that do this ghost marriage thing, and they did. I wish I had it. They did actually say. I'm just quoting from what I read on the internet.
Yeah.
They said Church of the Latter-day Saints was one of them, and they went in and explained the whole thing on that. And if I can find it, I'll post it on my Facebook page.
Okay. And the Mormon thing is just from a Mormon I knew before that told me years and years ago that, you know, when you die, you have to have your spouse speak for you. So it's like, you know, you have to be married and have a spouse speak for you in death. So to me, I kind of see a correlation, you know, it's something, it's not, they're not having to marry a corpse, but before you die, you need to be married so you have them to talk for you, or then people have to pray you into the next level or whatever it is. But I'm not a Mormon, so if I made a mistake, then I'm sorry, but I think I remember her telling me that years ago.
Yeah, they call it post-humus. Here, let me find this. Let's see. It's a marriage in which one of the participating members is deceased. It is legal in France, and similar forms are practiced in Sudan and China. Since World War I, France has had hundreds of requests.
Wow.
Let me see. Where did they put that in here? Oh, gosh. Well, I'll have to post it. Either that or I'll
well, and if mine is wrong, just apologize. If not,
yeah, I'm sorry. If I can find that, the next time I have Mark on, I'll show you the information where I got that from. And if I apologize, I don't mean to offend anybody. Please forgive me.
And I'll talk to my Mormon friend and ask her if I remember it correctly. You know, from what because I don't know much about the Mormons, but.
All right. Now, there's one other thing, and we have about 10 minutes or so if Mark can do this.
Okay.
Okay, so for those of you, just a little warning. I had asked Mark why he wrote this particular topic for his book. And he did it because of a personal experience that happened to him. And so I just want to make sure you guys, it's a very personal thing, and Mark wants to share it. And it's on, it's about molestation from a relative. So if you guys want to get off now and you don't want to listen to it, please feel free to do that. But Mark would like to tell his story and as to why he was interested in this particular topic for his book. So do you want to go ahead, Mark?
Sure. The subject is, of course, I'm 56 now. So this is dealing with, I was molested when I was 8 years old by a relative. And this relative there's no one else like him from his family or anyone else I know, period. So this is one of those things of, you know, an anomaly. But when I was 8, I was molested. And of course, you know, molesters count on children not telling on them for years because you really don't, you're embarrassed. You don't want anyone to know this crap. And so when I was in my 20s, I told my family, you know, told my mother. And what happens a lot of times with people who are molested, as you see now with the Me Too movement, is when people come forward and say, I was molested, I was abused, I was raped, a lot of times people turn on the molested. And in this family, they protected the person who was the molester so much that any of the people who came up to say they were molested, they turned on the molested, the children, you know. And so this individual, they always were forcing him into my face, you know, always. And even after I told them about all this stuff, they kept trying to just, you know, push them in my face. There's just something going on there. And this individual named, we call him Billy, William, he was a molester, and when he was in his 20s, he got in trouble, but he didn't get caught legally. They almost got him, but not quite. So he became so obsessed with getting children that he thought, well, if I can't get a live one, I'll get a dead one. And he got obsessed, and kind of like the Anatoly Mothman story, he started focusing on this little dead boy he had heard about in Ray County named Troy. And he found where the little boy was buried. He got the death certificate. He found out, he talked to people who had been around. The little boy had gone down his 10-year-old. He'd gone down riding his bike and got hit by a truck. So he found people who saw the accident. He obsessed with it. He found out where the house that the boy had lived. He rented the house. He started going to the grave and reading stories to this little dead boy, kind of like Anatoly was doing, talking and speaking. And he wanted to dig this little boy up and take it home because, dead kids can't say no. And the only thing that kind of stopped him was he was lazy. And also he started realizing that the boy would not be in good shape because of the condition of how he was killed and the time that had passed. So he started fantasizing. He still wanted to get a dead child, but he needed to get one that was fresher. So he started plotting on getting a live child. So during this time, he had been buying some child porn, and he got caught in a porn sting. Thank God us. And they arrested him on that and put him in prison. And when they went through his stuff to find any more porn, they found all of this information about this dead child. Well, then they found out, he told them, and they also found receipts and stuff. He had gone to a funeral home, made arrangements. Now, he made arrangements, told them that his son was dying in the hospital, and when his son died, he would have him sent to the funeral home. And he even brought pajamas to bury the child in. The problem is he didn't have a son. He didn't have any children. He had a child he was focusing on that he was about 8 years old. That he was focusing on turning into a dead child and having it buried in his fantasy. Then he was going to kill himself and be buried next to the child. So they got this, and this came forth apparently behind the scenes with the family, because all the family knew. They told the family about what he had been doing, but since he hadn't acted on it far enough yet, they couldn't get him for that. But they kept him in prison about 6 years. And in the 80s, before all of this kind of happened, the family, I was working for my aunt, taking care of some stuff for her, and they wanted me to talk to him. And in the 80s, I talked to him, and he told me that he was wanting a dead child. And I told them, I said, you need to have him institutionalized. He's going to kill a child. And over the years, since he's gotten out of prison, there are people that keep track of him. But, I have no doubt before he is dead that he's still plotting to try and get a dead child.
Wow.
And there's just no way to stop it. And when I lived in an apartment complex, right before he got in trouble and went to prison, for some reason, he bugged the crap out of me. He found out where I lived, and he moved in the same building. And a friend of mine that I took care of for 15 years, named Judith, she came up one day and said, I saw Billy getting off the elevator with a little boy. And so I went down to his door, banged on the door. He opens it, and I see this little boy standing there by the window. I said, toss up the kid. And I went and I told the downstairs and told them to tell the grandmother, do not let him get around this child. he's a molester. And they wouldn't believe me. They said, the grandmother said, it's your word against his, and I believe him. And that was right before he went to prison. So, and right now there are still family members and people who protect him. And evil gets protected. So, but he still has the desire to do that, to get a dead child. And so that story, you know, I've been holding on to it. I was going to put that into another book. And then when I read the Anatoly Moskvin story, I went, well, this is kind of similar, because he was going to the graves, talking to the spirit, trying to communicate to the spirit of the dead child, to wait until the dead child will tell him, take me home. And so it's something it must be sort of inherent in these people like that. But like I said, there's no one else like him in the family. There's no one else around him I know like that. And he's just a very evil, devious person. But he's got that in his system so badly, you can't stop it.
And so he's living in an apartment.
Yeah.
Do they keep track of him?
Not really. I mean, well, the police come every month he's on a sex offender, the Tennessee Bureau of Sex Offenders, whatever, and they check on him once a month, and he's furious when they do. He just pitches fits and spits on them and, you know, rages. But they check on him and keep track of him. And people have reported him, because, I mean, one time he joined a church where you wash children's feet. And he got in a lot of trouble there for whatever, you know, washing little boys' feet. So, you know, but he's never, a lot of people enable this behavior and go, oh, well, you know, it's just poor little Billy. Well, it's not poor little Billy. He's an evil entity. And they don't protect children, because in this country, we don't protect animals and children. And in most of the world, we don't protect animals and children. And so we devalue, you know, they're devalued. And these creeps and animals, these perverts, can get to them or get to victims, or, you know, they are able to take time and figure out who's the weakest link. And but he's being watched. I mean, but even being watched, you know, he's able to drive. He gets around. He's free to go wherever he wants.
Wow, that's oh man.
And well, it is. And I sent you a picture of him. I mean,
yeah, I did. I showed it
right
to
now,
them. Yeah, I showed
and he's a creep.
Oh yeah, I showed it to them. Gee, Mark, we're awfully sorry that happened to you, and this sort of thing does go on, and you know, it's really sad. Really sad.
Well, I'm just glad that, you know, I wasn't, you know, on the course meal to be killed, but when I was 8. But you know, but it's, and two, people who get molested you have to get over the embarrassment, because you didn't. I mean, it's not your fault. Yeah. It's the molester's fault. Mm-hmm. But in this case, that molester, who the family and people have protected, and even some church people have protected him. So they've enabled him to be where there's no way to control stopping or protecting anything. So, you know, you have to learn to look at these things and be proactive and open your mouth and don't allow these things. And if you're a person who's been molested, don't feel like it's your fault. It was done to you by other people, and they're the guilty ones. And we need to learn, but as society, we're getting the kids now, you know, kids are growing up that they're having to go to classes to learn how to talk to other people, how to look them in the eyes, because they've spent their whole life in computers and video games, and there's a whole generation of people there are some people who would rather be around dead people than live people, because you're not being judged, you don't have to pay attention to them, and if you want company, there they are.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a big deal.
Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. Now, next time I want you to get a computer that has Skype and a camera so we can see you. We want to see you, okay?
Oh, no, you might not want to see me right now. but I probably look like a witch on a stick.
Hey, you know what? You know what? I forgot. We got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Let's see. B3 Airspace. One question is, why in the heck did Mark do books about these creeps? And he just told you the reason why.
I just told you the reason why. Because I feel like we need to start studying this. Because it's a growing problem. It's not. If you look on the internet for these stories, you'll find stories. I mean, people necrophilia, killing people, having sex with their bodies till they drop apart, or stalking people, stalking children. We need to start looking at this. This is a problem, and like I said, I know a case of it. So it's more common than we think. And then two, since I'm a psychic, this book also, I do psychic evaluations. What I feel like, what condition are the spirits in? What is their problems? But I just personally feel like when I started looking at it, and every time you scratch the surface, another damn story falls out.
Yeah.
And it's gross and it's disgusting. But we have a generation of kids who cannot talk to other people. And in other countries, they're turning to dolls and things like that instead of people. And then they're turning from dolls into corpses because a corpse will not judge you.
Now, that's a question from Cassandra 50s. She wanted to know, is the gross thing dead now? And please say yes. And did he die horribly? Well, there's only two of them. So, so the two...
Not yet. He is still alive.
And we're talking about...
If something happens to him, I hope that they have it on film so I can watch it back and forth slowly.
And that's that not Carl. It was the Anatoly Moskvin.
Oh, him. He is alive. He's in a mental hospital.
Well, the only other one would have been Carl. He's dead.
Yeah. Carl's been dead since 52.
Yeah.
But Anatoly is quite alive. I mean, he was only caught like 7 years ago. So I think they're going to try and keep him in there for life. But he's alive.
All right, another question.
And,
go ahead.
Go ahead. And the mother of Olga, where she lives, she can see that sanitarium from her window.
Wow. That's really
every day.
Poor thing. All right, one last question from Renee
Sure.
R. If they get married to someone who was dead when they want company, who was dead when they want company of an alive person, is it considered cheating?
I would probably think so. As proper as they are in China, I would think you would have to be. I would think you would have to you're married, But then again, maybe if they find somebody else and get married, I don't know, would that make them a bigamist? So.
Well, what did I read? If they marry a dead man, and they somehow I forget how they have kids, but the kids, the family can find the woman someone to have children by, but when she has those children, they belong to the dead man that she's married to. I read that.
Yeah, I remember something about that.
Yeah.
So it's all revolving around. I think if you, I would say, they probably, once you're married, you're just married.
For at least 30 years, anyway. Then they figure the spirit moved on. All right, so I guess that's it. You'll come back on July 19, and I think that's we'll do the murders. on
the
that
murders.
show. Yeah.
And it's so disturbing, so disturbing. So it's like, let me tell you, and this book has grossed me out so much that I have to take breaks so I can run on the beach and get some sun, because it's just too disturbing. But I think it's something that if you read it, you won't be able to turn away from it.
Oh, let's see. Okay. Oh, Cassandra 50 said, "What doesn't destroy you, Mark, makes you stronger."
And tell her exactly. Exactly.
And Shelty Shangri-La said, "What is the percentage of these types of cases being in the USA compared to other countries? Seems like most are in other countries." I don't know what cases.
Oh, I don't know. Now, when you start looking at the weird stuff here, it looks like it's a little more common than I thought. But it does seem to be bigger from China and Thailand, and because they cross a lot of barriers that we just don't deal with here. And so it seems to be bigger in foreign countries.
I don't think...
I mean, if you're talking Karl Chancellor, Germany, Anatoly Golovkin, Russia, the Thailand for the luck tip dolls, most of it is foreign.
You know what? That would be a good thing for you to check out to see if there are any of those kind of cases in the United States, because I never really checked it out. That would be very interesting.
Yeah, that would be very neat to know. And trying to find out, in China, because I mean, for years since the 70s, they have, they want more boys. They want more boys. Well, now there's so many men, there aren't any women for them.
Oh.
So that's why they have to buy a dead bride, because they've outsourced the women. The women are, it's like thousands of little boys to one or two girls.
Yes.
It's a very big percentage.
Well, I heard.
And so they have to buy a corpse.
I heard that the Asian women are killing their fetuses and killing the babies because they don't want a female is worthless. Yes,
and that's so horrible. But in some places you're allowed one child only, and if it's a boy, then it's let to live. Sometimes they'll keep a girl, but mostly they will abort or kill the child, let it die from exposure or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible. We don't know what that is here, but that's why they feel, and they go along with it. They support it. But if they're in rural areas, they said sometimes if they have a girl first, they will allow them to have another child to try and get a boy. So sometimes you can have more than one child, but if you have a boy first, then that's it. And if you have any other children past that, you have to kill them.
All right. Cassandra 50 said, "What? Oh, let's see. Shelty. Okay, wait a minute. Beat 3 airspace. Thanks, Mark and Norene, in a very informative show." Linda Richardson said, "Thank you, Mark." Shelty Shangri-La said, "Mark, do you realize how much we love you?"
Well, thank you. I love you too. It's very sweet, and it's thank y'all so much for listening to my very strange stuff.
Well, you know what? Now, this book is entitled Darkest Corner, but since it's a trilogy, are you going to add, like this is a number 1 or something?
Yes, the first one will be the dolls, corpses treated as dolls. And the second one will be the murderers and necrophiliacs. And then the third one will be and each one will be the Darkest Corner. And then the third one will be Darkest Corner funeral homes and crematories.
And actually,
and because I live next to Noble, Georgia, so I mean, we smell, the bodies from a distance.
Oh
so.
My God! Do you want to tell them about the doll picture on your book cover?
Well, as a psychic, I'm very visual anyway. But for the doll, after the Russian doll thing, I wanted to find the perfect doll to put on the cover. And instantly. The first time I looked on eBay, this wax doll who is from about the 1880s, who has half of her face is missing. I didn't do it to her. Never would do that to anything that represents a person. And this doll who has these brilliant blue eyes, you look at it, everyone that looks at her in person wants to protect the doll, because dolls sometimes do have human energy. And to me, it represents like what the children from the Russian doll man, what it makes me feel like. You feel like you want to protect it. You want to protect these children, but you can't. And the mouth being gone, of course, they can't speak. So I think it's a very intense doll. And like I said, I don't have much money. I'm a poor psychic. And it just so happened I was able to get this doll, and it made a perfect cover. And she just is, I've had, everyone who's seen it has really been interested in her. And so I'm people to know I'm treating her well. I feel very sorry for her. I'm treating her well. But,
and has this book been published yet?
No, Finn Schrader Hill is doing the editing for me, so I'm hoping to have it out hopefully in July, because I'm going slow on some of it, because some of it grosses me out so badly I have to step away from it. But hopefully we will have this by the end of July. It will be on Amazon. That's where most of my books are. Anyway, you can just order them on Amazon. But as soon as I get it ready, I'll let y'all know. But it should be pretty close, because when we were originally doing it, we were doing it all as one book. So when you suggested doing it as a trilogy, we've broken it down. And so now, I think within 2 or 3 weeks I can have the doll one finished.
Yeah. Because
besides with it, I'm also doing psychic observations, which if you don't believe in a psychic, you don't have to read the observation. They're at the end of the story. You don't have to believe in psychics, ghosts, anything. You don't have to read it. You don't have to look at that. You can just look at the story, because each story is true. And because all of this we've talked about, it's true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I put in my observations, and if I feel like, there are problems or anything, I discuss that. And also I discuss the psychology behind what I think, what's causing this, And so I'm not a psychologist, but as a regular person and as a psychic, I want to look at it from both angles and say, why does someone think this is normal? Why does this happen? And like I said, I think it needs to really be something we look at. So, but like I said, if you don't believe in psychics, you don't have to read the book. You read the book, skip the psychic stuff.
My mod, Unique Annie, and Shelty Shangri-La, they want to know if you do readings.
Yes, I do. I do readings. I do candles. I do all sorts of stuff. And anyone that wants to contact me, they can contact me on Facebook at Chattanooga Chills. That's one of my books. And Chattanooga Chills, Mark Fultz. Or they can contact me at Fultz Chat, FULTSCHAT at AOL.com. Or I can also give you my phone number, and they can call me on my phone.
Don't give your phone number out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. But on Facebook, you're Mark Elliott Fultz.
Yeah, that's my middle name.
Yeah, Mark Elliott Fultz.
But if they look up Chattanooga Chills, Chattanooga is the city I came from, like Chattanooga Choo Choo. Put in Chattanooga Chills and just look it up. And contact me on Facebook. And if you're interested in readings or psychic stuff, I do investigations. Since I moved to Florida, I'm going to start doing that down here. I'm going to start a ghost tour. I have one in Chattanooga, but I closed it down since I moved. But I'm going to go back and film it and put it on pay-per-view.
Awesome.
And so anything psychic, you can contact me on that. And I do murder investigations, things like that, psychic, anything. I do murder investigations for free. I mean, anyone that wants me to look at missing people or anything, I do that. That's
awesome.
That's
well,
free.
Mark, good luck with the publication. I can't wait for it to come out. That book is going to be freaky. It's going to be freaky. And and then I will see you on July 19th.
Well, thank you again so much, Norene, for all of this. And thank you again for listening to all of this. We'll have to see what people think.
Oh, they loved it. They loved it. I can't wait for the next show. Oh, my God. The people that we're going to talk about, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Oh, yeah. I can't. Yeah. When we get to that, it's Albert Fish and all of that.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
just horrifying. So, but we'll get to it.
Okay, honey. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Love you. Bye, honey.
Love you too. Thank you so much.
Bye. Oh, God. Well, guys, I hope you liked the show. You know, he just tipped off the iceberg on what's in that book, because he switched it to 3 separate books. So that first book on the corpses and the dolls, it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna buy the books. I can't wait. Anyway, I want to do this show ran over. I'm exhausted. This show ran over the time, and so I'm going to do some fast shout outs. I wanted to also thank my mods for being here tonight. Royce Himman and Unique Annie, thank you so much for being in the show. And everybody, please send your positive vibes to Royce. He has medical problems, and he really needs your positive energy sent his way. And also, I understand I got donations into Super Chat, and I want to thank you all so much. Thank you. Anthony, Lisa Marie, Linda Richardson, Yvette Bissett, and Shelty Shangri-La. I want to thank you all so much for that. Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you. So let's do some shout outs now. Let's see. I know we had over 100 people, so I'm not sure. And I know there was a lot in the chat room, but I couldn't see everybody because I was concentrating on the show. So I want to say hello to Carl White, Graham Crosby, Aaron Brody, Andrew Cox. Nice to see you, Andrew. Astro Virgin, Beat 3 Airspace. Oh, there you are, Carl. Cassandra 50, Chippa Terry, Claire Knott, Jordan Perkins, Kayla Spears, Lenora Moreno, Linda Richardson, Pungai Fungi, Royce, Shelty Shangri-La, Shun 20002, The Haglin, and Unique Annie. And did I miss anybody? Maria Sandra Amador. Anybody else? Jessica Luna, Nebet Seti, Renee R. Anybody else that I missed? Cassandra 50. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody else? I'd like to give you a shout out. Jordan Perkins. Everybody's starting to sign off now. I want to thank you all so much. God, you know, I have a guest coming next week. Sean Sirius. He's absolutely fabulous. And I forgot the topic that we're going to talk about. Kathy Salento. Vanessa Dugan. He's excellent. And I did a show with him on, oh my God, I can't even remember the topic. I got hit with the copyright, so I had to do it on one of my other channels. But I always wanted to bring it over here because it was fascinating. But anyway, I got a great topic for next week. Kata Moon. So, guys, I'll see you next week. Prophecy, End of Days. But I'm not going to have a show on the 21st because 5 months ago we bought tickets to see Oh God, Rod Stewart, and we're going to Las Vegas, and I'm so darn excited. I've been wanting to see him for so many years, and we were able to get tickets. So, but I will see you next Thursday, and we do have a show the last Thursday of the month with Michael Fleeman. He writes true crime. So guys, have a wonderful weekend. I love you guys. Group hug. Thank you all so much each week for coming to my shows. I really appreciate it. And if you like the show tonight, if you would please hit the like, and maybe if you would also pass the word on about the shows on Thursday nights, I'd appreciate that too. I'd really like to make the show grow more if I could. Tammy Heitzman, hi honey. I would really like to make it grow. And if I offended anybody, or if Mark offended anybody tonight, we apologize, okay? So I would never do anything on purpose to anybody. So I love you guys. Again, to Royce Hyman and Unique Annie, thank you so much for being the mods tonight, as always. And love you guys. Good night, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Thursday. Don't forget. Night, everybody. Love you. Good night.